Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And tomorrow night, Chelsea are back in action as the Champions League group stage campaign concludes with a game against Dinamo Zagreb. Nothing riding on this one. The Blues have already qualified. We've won the group, and it is the return fixture, as it were. That turned out to be Thomas Tuchel's last game in charge when we lost 1-0 over in Zagreb. The Blues looking to bounce back from a shambolic performance at the weekend against Brighton. You would expect heavy rotation from Graham Potter, given the fact we have a massive game against Arsenal on Sunday lunchtime in the Premier League. So we'd expect to see a few fresh faces in there. Could be a chance some academy players, some under 23s. We don't know what we're going to see, but George, how are you feeling about this one, mate? How important is this game now? Because obviously, it's kind of a dead rubber. There's nothing riding on it. But having just been battered at the weekend, it's actually really important that we do put in a decent performance and win this one.
Yeah, I think we need to put on a professional display despite what's happened and transpired in the group. And we've got to put it in perspective. What a huge turnaround in that group, by the way. I think Potter drew his first game at home in the Champions League as well. So we were 1 point after 2 games, and it looked as if we were going to struggle to qualify. And then all of a sudden, turned on the results, and lo and behold, we've not only qualified, but we finished top of the group. So, you only have to look at what Spurs are required and how much people are talking about them and what they're required to do this evening in Marseille. But I think Chelsea, despite being in the same bracket as Spurs probably this season, looking at top 4, I think we've done well to turn it around, particularly when you've got the giants of AC Milan in there. But yeah, it is important to bounce back. I mean, I watched your reaction at the weekend. It was hard to take, but I agree with pretty much everything that you said. I pretty much saw it coming in a way. Something had to change. You can't go unbeaten forever. Potter, I think that hurt Potter. I think he was, I think he was a bit angry at the fans' reaction of, I know it was only banter, but I don't think he took it very well. I think he expected a little bit more respect from them, given what he'd left the club in a really good state, and we saw that at the weekend how good they play. But it's a dead rubber, so it's going to be difficult to really gauge response because there'll be so much rotation, as you mentioned at the top of the show. But I still expect a win, mate. We should be winning this game at home, no problem.
Yeah, we should be. I mean, you need a bit of a confidence boost coming off the back of that result at the weekend. Before we get into that game in a bit more detail, I wanted to discuss the goalkeeping situation because it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting dynamic that's going on at the moment. Obviously, Kepa went off at half-time, slight injury. He's not going to feature at all tomorrow. But then Matt Law just dropped a piece in the Telegraph not too long ago. I'm just going to bring it up now. Yeah, here we go. So, and Chelsea will use this season to decide if they need a goalkeeper. Mendy currently earns around £50,000 a week, less than half of what Kepa earns. Apparently, during pre-season, Mendy snapped back no in LA when asked if his distribution needed improvement. And then obviously going on to say that Czech convinced Thomas Tuchel to ditch his cup rotation policy last season and pick Mendy for all of Chelsea's biggest games, including the Club World Cup, EFL Cup and FA Cup finals, which Kepa had hoped to start. Let's start with Mendy first, mate. You got 45 minutes on Saturday. What did you make of that? I mean, it was quite hard for me to see because I was right down the other end behind the opposite goal. But I did see a few mistakes, some poor distribution, and didn't look particularly sharp. Something you probably would expect as well, given the fact he's not played a lot of football recently at all. Where do you stand on this goalkeeping situation? Because it's a really interesting situation at the moment because it seems to be that Kepa's the number one, but then Chelsea are going to use this season to kind of evaluate the situation. Now, we've discussed it before, but it's probably an area we're looking to really challenge for the top titles, challenge for the league. It's a position that we can probably improve in. How do you see the goalkeeping situation at the moment?
Really, really interesting. Mendy was recommended by Petr Cech, but times changed so drastically and so quickly at the club that not only is the person that recommended him gone, you've had a whole change at the top of the board and the manager himself who also favoured Mendy. So there's been a lot of change very quickly, and Kev's been patient and he's certainly delivered when he got given his chance. Again, we don't know how much of that article is true with regards to the training ground and the snapping back on the distribution front, but you'd imagine no smoke without fire. So there's got to be something in that's required Potter to change it. He must have seen something in training to suggest that he wants to play Kepa. We believe that Kepa's distribution is better. He's probably a better overall goalkeeper, but I don't know. It's difficult. I think we both agree on this show, and we've said it for a while, that could we see, and I think we said this before the Champions League, which again tarnishes it slightly, but are we going to win is he a Premier League winning goalkeeper? Is he going to save you 10, 12 points a season? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think both actually have great patches, but over a sustainable period of time, both have quite erratic changes in form. I think that's been shown in both camps. I mean, Kepa wasn't great under Frank Lampard, had his whole bust up with Sarri, didn't he? So I think it is an area that we really, really need to look at in the summer very carefully.
I mean, this is a big opportunity for Mendy now, because obviously he got the unexpected half against Brighton. Probably wasn't expecting that, but in the next 10 days now, you would expect him to definitely play twice. He's going to play tomorrow night, and you'd expect him to play in the Carabao Cup against City next Wednesday. So this is a big opportunity for him. This 10 days is massive, and it could play a big part in his Chelsea future as well. I mean, how important is it for him these next two games? Because he's really got to make an impression. He's got to strike that balance between kind of not trying to over impress and make mistakes. He's got to kind of find that balance where he just turns up, performs to the best of his ability, and hope he convinces the manager. But I think, to be honest, he's got quite a lot of convincing to do.
And I think that's where it's so hard when you're a goalkeeper, because you're always going to have, as a manager, a preference regardless of how well a keeper plays. I just feel that that's always been the way. And I know if form changes drastically, you do see managers change it. But again, like you said, when he came on in the second half, naturally he's going to make mistakes because he's not used to it. But coming out running, not communicating with the defenders having to last ditch clear it before he clatters them out, and players go round him. It's so difficult because, like you said, ideally he just wants to keep a clean sheet, not be busy, and do all the simple things well. But it's going to be really tough for him. But he's at least, on the positive side, he's got these two games. You'd suspect he's going to play in both these games, that he's got those two games to make a statement. So you can't say that he's not got a chance and an opportunity to make a claim for himself and to give the manager more headaches. But I still feel that Potter's going to have a preference as soon as he came through the door, and that's probably going to end up being the goalkeeper that has the more amount of time in the sticks.
Yeah, no, I do think Potter he's sort of made his mind up that Kepa, for the time being, is the number one keeper, and Kepa would have to go through a very bad run of form to be dropped, essentially. I don't think much will change after the World Cup either, if we're being perfectly honest. I don't really know how I think obviously Mendy's got to work hard and put his head down, do the graft on the training pitch and whatnot, like Kepa's done when he was out of the side. But unless Kepa goes on a bad run of form, you actually can't see a way how Mendy gets back into the side. And, it's not like, as you said, goalkeeping is a difficult position because it's not somewhere where you can kind of make changes kind of from week to week. As a number two keeper, or if you're vying to be a number one keeper, then, you're looking at the cups. And for Mendy, we could feasibly be out the Carabao Cup next week. That's another 3, 4, 5 games potentially where he would have played, gone. And then you're suddenly thinking, well, then where is opportunities coming? Early rounds he could be the cup keeper, but do you know what I mean? Like it's not like outfield position where you can get kind of numerous opportunities in a game where you can come off the bench and make an impact. Goalkeeper is tricky. You're either in the side or you're not. There's no scope to sort of get a few minutes here and there. So it is going to be difficult for him. And it's going to be really big. I mean, do you think that? I know this is kind of looking a few months ahead or so, but do you think if Mendy sort of doesn't really get himself back into the team at all this season, do you think he could look to move on?
We've been wrong about this before, though. It was only a year or so ago that we were saying that Kepa's almost certainly gone, had no future at the club. Mendy was playing outstandingly. Tuchel always fancied him, and it looked like he had no way back in. And now all of a sudden we're talking roles reversed. So you'd like to think that Mendy could get his head down and act as the professional that Kepa's done and just buy his time because he was in a future investment. We still believe that he has got top draw qualities, which he clearly does. He has been a match winner for us in numerous occasions. And it would be a shame to see him go. I think there is still an opportunity there for Mendy, and it's a great problem to have for a club that's aspiring to get higher up the table and to compete on all fronts, to have two very good goalkeepers that could both arguably be number one in any other team. But again, like you said, mate, as a goalkeeper that's not getting many minutes and, cup games here, there, and far few in between, you want game time, and he could get that elsewhere. So I think the choice is his, but I think he's going to have to be very patient if he's going to have a chance at getting a first team jersey back on.
I mean, it's a really interesting dynamic at the moment, that situation. It's one we're going to have to watch closely. And I think, to be honest, I would agree. I think most Chelsea fans would agree that, people might disagree whether Kepa's a better overall keeper or not. But the fact of the matter is that Kepa is the number one, and he's done nothing to warrant to not play, basically. Obviously, unfortunate to pick up a bit of a foot injury at the weekend. But again, in that first half, yes, he let 3 goals in, but none of them were his fault. He wasn't at fault for any of them. So, yeah, that was it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting, really will be interesting to see what Chelsea do in the summer. Were a top goalkeeper to come available, like an Oblak potentially, that's really puts the cat among the pigeons. What would Chelsea look to do? Because you can't really pass up on those opportunities. You really can't. But it'll be let's wait and see what happens with that goalkeeper situation. But it's certainly one to keep an eye on, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Mendy's performance tomorrow night at Stamford Bridge. Before we get back to the game, I just want to talk quickly about Leandro Trossard. Out of contract at the end of this season. Brighton have got an option to extend it for a further year. Naturally, there's been links with Chelsea. We could get him at a cut price deal in January, potentially. What are your thoughts on him? Because I saw him at the weekend. First time I've seen him in person. He was good. He caused a lot of issues. 27 years of age, knows the Premier League. I mean, the fact that Nkunku's probably already coming in, we may well be looking at Rafa Leao next summer as well. What would your views be on a move for Trossard? I think it would be smart business, but I don't know if it's necessarily the right thing to do. It's not really a priority, as it were.
Yeah, I don't think it's the priority. Look, good player. I mean, I haven't seen him play live, but from obviously what I've seen in games, he's very, very difficult to handle. Quite direct, can score goals. He obviously knows the Premier League, and we both agreed at the start of the season that we need to maybe change the course on transfers, and rather going for the big European name, go for someone who's Premier League proven. And that's what Chelsea have done with a couple of signings in Sterling and Cucurella. I've been worried about the transfer policy for a while now. I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't think we did outstanding business in the window, because I thought we did. Generally, I thought it was a good window. But now a lot of Chelsea fans are rumbling, saying that we spent a lot of money and we've made sideways moves, and we're turning into a bit of a Manchester United, where we're buying players who just aren't performing, and we spent a lot of money and haven't made any progress, which I can't really disagree with if you look at overall form in the league over the last couple of years.
But we haven't played well in the league for years, really, on a consistent basis.
No. So then, are we just a really good cup team that have moments at the moment? Probably.
Yeah.
But again, we spent a lot of money this window, and we're still not seeing. I know it takes time, and I know we've had a manager change. None of these players are Potter's players. So what does he do? Does he give these players more time? But does he give these players time, or does he do, right, I didn't actually want Koulibaly, so I'm going to go for someone else? This is the problem.
It's tricky, mate. And this is what I mean. Like, when people say, oh, I don't like Potter, I don't think he should be here for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever. But the longest serving manager at Chelsea has been 2.5 years, Mourinho, in like the last 20 odd years.
Mental.
That's mad. Like, and whatever people say, that hiring and firing policy, despite the fact that it's bought trophies, that is not going to win you a Premier League. It's as simple as that. You as a man, you cannot build a squad capable of winning the Premier League when, as a manager, you come in and you've got the 2 or 3 managers' previous players, and then you then don't have enough time yourself to bring your own players in. Like, it just doesn't work. I think, like, obviously Antonio Conte came in and did it in his first season, but I think from 2017, football's changed. It's no surprise that the teams that have the last two teams to win the Premier League have been teams that have backed their manager, and the squad is all of that manager's signings. You get Chelsea fans are impatient, football fans are impatient. We've been impatient at times, but remember, Pep came in first season, 1-0, came fourth. I think Klopp came eighth in his first season. Could you imagine the meltdown that Chelsea fans would be having if Potter came eighth in the first season? But I know people say that the DNA is winning at Chelsea, but that's not always been the case. The DNA at Chelsea has been winning since Roman came, but there was Chelsea before Roman, and winning certainly wasn't part of the DNA. I mean, I personally think, yes, we should be challenging for trophies, and yes, Chelsea should be winning trophies every season, at least one. But we might have to accept that actually we're going down a different route. We want someone to be here for the long term, and it might be that it takes 2 years to build this, and we might win nothing for 2 years. But if that means in the third year that we win a Premier League, then who's to say that's not a good trade-off, if that makes sense?
Oh, mate, what you've just said in the last 2 minutes is some of the best and most logical things that we've heard. I mean, I disagree slightly, and I think you can come and make a huge impact and win a league without building, but it takes a bit of luck and it takes a very special manager to be able to build that. And it's circumstantial, isn't it? It's, if morale's low and you've got a very good squad and someone who's won leagues can come in, they can go on a run and do that. You've seen that with Conte. You've seen that with Mourinho coming in first time, spending a lot of money. No league is guaranteed, but I agree that times have changed slightly. My argument to that is, and I've said it before, this is why I backed Frank Lampard. But then now why was everyone shouting for him to be out when things were going badly? When you're basically saying the same about Potter, it's almost like we had the same issue then. So what does it take for us to be patient? Are we going to accept?
I think we just
are we going to accept loads of losses? Are we going to accept eighth with Potter this season? Are the club going to accept it? That's the biggest issue. I don't think they would.
This is where you find out. This is where you find out if they're lying, basically. Because if you're true to your word and you want to give a manager time, then all right. Say we came as an example, if we came bottom half, then that of course that might totally alter the scenario. But if we did miss out on the Champions League, say we came fifth, for example, yes, it would be disappointing. But ultimately, let's be perfectly clear. We were dire under Thomas Tuchel. Let's make no mistakes about it. We were terrible towards the end of his reign. Dreadful to watch. I didn't look forward to watching any of our games at all. Like, the players weren't buying into him anymore. He'd lost the dressing room and all that. But even going back to the good work that he had done, like, that was good work in cup competitions. That wasn't good work in the league. We didn't play good league football under Thomas Tuchel. Let's be perfectly clear. People saying, we should have kept Tuchel. We wouldn't be in this situation. Hang on a second. The league form was terrible. We scraped fourth on the last day of the season because Spurs lost, because Leicester lost, and Spurs did us a favour. I think what you have to see, and I think what the big difference would be is, like, can you see progression? Are there obvious patterns of play? Is there a clear identity performing? Have we made good progress in the cups? Did we make it to semi-finals, finals, or whatever it is? I think that's when it becomes more acceptable. If you were to come fifth or sixth, but you could see clear, tangible signs of progress, then you'd be more accepting of it. But if it was a sixth place and it was like you kind of scraped it and there was no identity and we were all over the place, the performances were terrible, then perhaps it becomes slightly less acceptable. So I think it just depends on whether you are seeing kind of signs of progress as opposed to not seeing any progress.
No, I agree. But this is what when Lampard started, this is what I said I don't care where Chelsea finish this season. If we're going to go down this route of keeping a manager 5-6 years, why does it matter if you finish fifth or eighth? Does it really matter at that point?
Yeah.
If you're not going to qualify for Europe, which we should be doing as a football club, granted, and of course the owners are going to expect that because of the money they've invested, and it has huge implications of going forward because you can't get the same caliber of player, and therefore how do you progress? So I get that, but if it means finishing, let's say, fourth for the next 3 years, But then the fourth year, we're like a Klopp or a Pep team. I'm all for it. At the moment, it's too early to tell whether Potter is going to be the right person for that. But like you said, mate, this is where we're going to find out if the owners are full of bollocks or not. And I think that they are, because I just can't see how a manager stays in a job for 6 years if, or 5 years plus at Chelsea Football Club. I just don't see it as a model. But I'd be gladly proven wrong.
I think we do need to see that. I mean, it's got to be the right guy. And as you say, it's far too early to be judging Potter and saying whether he's the right guy or whether he's not the right guy. He's got to be given the time to see. And the fact that the longest serving manager has been 2.5 years, Mourinho, that's madness. That really is, when you think about it. I know it worked under Roman and whatnot to an extent, but I think football's changed now. And I think the way to go is to have someone in for medium to long term, providing there are those tangible signs of success, trophies delivered along the way. But I think, look, as you said, time will tell whether if things don't go right this season and it's, say, a 7th or whatever it is, which I'm not saying it will be, but I do almost feel like, as God of Frogs is saying in the chat, that perhaps this year is almost a bit of a free hit for Potter. I don't think when he started the season with Brighton, he was expecting to be taken over at Chelsea in September. I just that wasn't part of the plan. He wouldn't have been thinking that whatsoever. So I almost feel like you're coming in partway through a season. You've not been part of that club's transfer dealings in the summer. You do your absolute best to get them to finish as high at the table as possible and try and win any of the trophies that are available. But you almost feel that this is kind of, Potter shouldn't really be judged on this season. It should be kind of judged on what he does next season. I know he's going to have the bulk of this season, but he didn't do the pre-season. He's not brought in his players that he was looking to work with. So I do think that perhaps, whilst it's maybe a bit dangerous to say this is like a free pass as such, I don't think he should really be judged too much on what happens this season.
I don't think he will be with the fans, but he knows full well. I mean, he's not an idiot.
Yeah,
he's taken this job. He's taken this job knowing that, regardless if it's a free hit or not to the fans, he knows that he still needs to get results, because this job is, as you said, different caliber, where we expect a certain level, and if he doesn't hit it, he could be in trouble, regardless of whether it's a free hit or not, or it puts him under greater pressure for the start of next season. And we have to get over that barrier as a football club, because we can't keep going round. I mean, we've almost run out of options at this point.
Well, exactly. Exactly. I mean, Potter, I think, as you said, he's clever. He was saying in the presser today, in my job, you have to be careful what you listen to. People can talk, say whatever. It's part of life. When you're at a club like this, you're only 90 minutes away from crisis. You have to put it in perspective and look at it as intelligently as you can. I think that's a fair point, because, we were fuming after the game on Saturday. Chelsea fans were pissed. We were terrible. But let's if you take a step back, and the way that people were reacting, it was almost like we hadn't won any of the 10 games that he'd been in charge of. We'd gone 9 unbeaten prior to that. And yes, 1 loss, and it was a bad loss, but that doesn't undo the previous, 9 games where we had made some good progress and played some good stuff. So, it's true at Chelsea and at big clubs, 1 result and it's suddenly like it's a crisis. It's not a crisis at all. We lost a game of football. We got hammered. It happens. We just need to learn from it. As long as the players learn from it and the manager learns from it, then that's the most important thing for me. These results are going to happen. Yes, you could say as Chelsea, you shouldn't lose a game of football 4-1. But actually, do you as a team, do you actually have any right to expect not to lose football matches? I don't think you do. It's that's the beauty of sport. That the fact is that even if one team is better than another team, as soon as you cross that white line and the whistle's blown, you've got equal chance of winning. And, there's no given right to think, oh, yeah, we'll definitely turn these over today. It's not how it works. And I think you do need some perspective. Yes, it was disappointing. It was terrible. But it's our first defeat in 9 games. But I think what makes it worse, the fact that we started the season so poorly under Tuchel, and we now kind of sit in 6th place in the Premier League. And when you've got tough games against Arsenal and Newcastle coming up before the World Cup, feasibly, I'm not saying we will, because we could win both those games. But we could also lose both those games, which is then that's how the momentum can shift so quickly and perspective can change so quickly from sort of couple of weeks to the next couple of weeks. So it's important that we kind of find that middle ground with Potter. But at the moment, I don't think he's done anything wrong. I don't think there's anything he can particularly do better. Yes, he got it wrong last time. He knows that. He's kind of admitted that. And as long as you learn from it, then I think that's kind of the end of that. Mate, let's look ahead to tomorrow night then. Obviously, it's going to be rotation. I don't think there's going to be as much rotation as people think there's going to be. Yes, we've got Arsenal on I'm going to bring the team up on the screen now, and we can I'll get to this point anyway whilst this is up there. I don't think there's going to be as much rotation as people think there's going to be, because I don't think there's that many sort of squad players kind of available, as it were. I don't think there's that many players from sort of the 23s or the 21 side that will make the step up to play. There might be some on the bench, but I'd be surprised if any started, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, I think Chukwuemeka will probably play, and maybe a few others. But where do you stand on this sort of game? Because it's a game you want to win, but then you don't just want to play, as Potter said in the presser today. It was, where is it? Let me just read it here. He said, it's not a time to just use youngsters for the sake of it. We have to try to pick a team that can win. We've used a lot of young players. They've been impressive. And I do think that's true. I don't think there's any point in just chucking young players in for the sake of it. I think, if there's players that have trained well and he thinks they deserve an opportunity, possible, give them an opportunity. You've seen him give minutes to Chukwuemeka from the bench, viable minutes. We've seen him that he's not afraid to use young players. But do you agree that there's just no point just chucking them in for the sake of it?
No, you shouldn't do anything for the sake of it. You shouldn't just hand out, appearances for a first team for the sake of it. They have to earn those. But equally, I do think that this is a real good opportunity. And if I was a manager, a great opportunity to trial new things, because it's, I know there's still 40,000 people that pay their money to go and see Chelsea win. And we've got to respect the opposition that we're playing at the very top level of European football. I completely get that. There's no mugs in the Champions League, despite what, there have been some hammerings in the past and maybe a level of, they're not quite at it. But I do think this is an opportunity to trial things. If you're not going to do it now, when? But I don't know. Managers just don't tend to do it. I think we picked a really weak. I can't remember what game it was, but we picked quite a weak team, thinking there was going to be a lot of changes in a previous one, and it ended up being quite strong. I can't remember
it was It was before the Wolves game. There was like 7 changes from the previous game, and people were kind of losing their shit, and it actually worked out all right.
Yeah, and I think we've got a good enough squad to still beat them and take out a lot of those major players. But then again, you could flip it and say, with the World Cup added in, he doesn't need to really rest players, because we've only got a handful of games. I think 4 or 5 games left until they go off.
4 games left.
So it's not like the long Christmas period where you have to think and manage the squad. He could play his first team all the way up to that if he wants to. He's not going to care if anyone's injured for international duty. It doesn't bother him. So I don't know. But for me, if it was me personally, I'd be changing it a fair lot, and maybe even trying a new formation or players in different positions.
Yeah, I think I would be looking to make at least 6 or 7 changes, most likely, and I think he probably will. I've gone with a 4-3-3 system here. I think because of the personnel we've got available, yes, Koulibaly is back. Silva needs to be rested. I think, and with Fofana injured still, it makes sense to go with a back 4. I think an extra man in midfield can help us out, and just go with the 3 up front and just try that. I really do, and that can always kind of, that could always change to a diamond if you wanted to, and you wanted to go 2 up top like that. You could do it. There's that ability to sort of interchange, which I think Potter likes. Quite flexible, might set up one way, but you can change it multiple times within a game. Would you be going with the back 4 tomorrow?
I mean, I don't think what we played against Brighton worked at all. That was very evident.
No.
I don't know. I still can't work Potter out. I don't know if he's going to be stubborn and just say, well, that was a one-off. We can maybe trial it again. And players need, if you're just going to completely ditch a plan because you've lost a game when you're trying out players in different positions for the first time, I think it's never going to work, is it? You need time to embed the style of football you want to play, and if that is going to create teething problems and poor results. So, but I don't know if Potter's a stubborn person, or whether he's going to change, or whether he's just going to say that clearly didn't work, I'm going to change it again. I don't know. I haven't figured him out. We knew that Tuchel was very stubborn in that he wouldn't change it, and he was more of a reactive manager. Potter seems to be more of a can't think of the word now.
It seems to be more open, I guess.
Well, like pragmatic. It seems to be,
pragmatic. That's the word.
He'll make changes as and when he sees it, not on the result of a goal or we're up against it.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I don't know, but
let's go with the 4 because I actually think it's better with the personnel we've got available. We've already discussed him earlier. By the way, guys in the chat as well, please feel free to put your selections in or any questions you've got about anything at all, and I will get to those. Also, whilst we're here, please smash the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're heading towards 2K subscribers, not too far away now, so please do smash that subscribe button if you're tuning in now and you haven't already done so. Between the sticks, then, it's obviously going to be Edouard Mendy. We discussed earlier how important that's going to be for him. And George, he'll just be looking for he'll be looking for a game where he's not going to have very much to do and a bit of a confidence-boosting clean sheet. Yeah,
you'd hope so. I mean, that's the goal for any goalkeeper in any game. Want it as quiet as possible and clean sheets. And he's going to have his chances in these next couple of games. But he's going to be one that I am going to be interested to watch because I think the spotlight will be on him somewhat tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it certainly will. I'm going to centre half then. Thiago Silva, for me, he'll be rested. He'll be given the night off for sure. To be honest, I actually think he's played too much football recently, and that game against Brighton at the weekend, despite 2 good goal line clearances from him, they were from his own doing in the first place. I thought he looked a little bit tired, so I think it'll be a well-needed night off for him. Koulibaly back in training, full training, so I think we'll go with Koulibaly and Chalobah. Would you agree with that? Koulibaly, Chalobah as the centre halves.
More minutes.
And I think it makes sense to play Koulibaly because there's no point just not using him tomorrow because he's not played for a few matches, and to chuck him in against Arsenal potentially when he's not played for a while, it makes sense to give him minutes in a game like this where you wouldn't expect the intensity to be too great, and he can sort of just play his way back into some fitness really. And Chalobah, I think, should continue as well. Right back, the only option we've got is Azpilicueta. This is a game for Aspi. I think for Dave, this is all right for him. Would you stick him at right back?
Yeah,
I mean, it's the only choice really.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then who would you go with left back? Because obviously Chukwuemeka has started the last few games, but he's been subbed off early in virtually all the last games that he started. He did get cooked by Solly March at the weekend. Admittedly, not all his fault though, because he was getting no help from Sterling at all in terms of the tracking back. But he was exposed in a lot of one-on-ones. I did feel a bit sorry for him. Do you think he'll start again? Because Potter keeps starting him, but then he keeps taking him off early. And Chilwell didn't play against Salzburg, and then Chilwell come on as a sub after about 65 minutes at the weekend. I personally feel it would be time for Chilwell, but just before you give your choice, mate, what have your thoughts been on Chukwuemeka? Because it's been a bit tricky, it's been a bit difficult for him recently. But I did a tweet saying I was a little bit concerned, not concerned long term for him, but just concerned in terms of what's happened recently.
Yeah, I do feel for him slightly. He's had to play that kind of inside left role and then wing back, and he's always somehow been the first to be subbed off, which is never easy. I mean, that must have been, he probably knows that. I don't know. I feel for him, but I think it is going to take time for him. We've got to stick at it. We've invested heavily into him. He's still a very, very good left back, but I feel like it's similar to the Sterling situation. I think we've bought a player that plays completely differently now. He's got a Chelsea shirt on because we play in a different way. He's not the bombing, out and out fullback who just, can forget about defensive responsibilities and try and get balls into the box. He's being asked to do more defensively than he was at Brighton. So we're not necessarily seeing the best of him. I think it is a chance for, I don't know, I'd like the idea of him kind of playing out of this bad form and get given a chance in a game where we would dominate possession and we should be on top just to give him a bit of a confidence boost. But then, that's a bit unfair on Chile, isn't it, really? But tough one for me. I would go Chukwuemeka, but you can go Chilwell. That's fine.
Let's go Chilwell. I do agree at that point that a few people in the chat have said it as well that Chukwuemeka's bad games have all come at left centre back, and they have. And yes, I know he's played there, but he doesn't look comfortable there at the moment for Chelsea at all.
No.
He really doesn't. Yeah, maybe take him out, bring him on a bit later on. I think that could work well. But yeah, for me, I think he's got to. For me, Correa has to play left wing back if he's going to play. I think left centre back. I'm not saying it can't work, but it's not working for him at the moment, and it's making him look like a bad player when he actually really isn't. Let's move into midfield then, mate. Mate,
are we going to see Zakaria?
Yeah, this is it, mate. We have to see Zakaria. We just have to. If he doesn't play in this game, he's never going to play for Chelsea. It's as simple as that. It would make sense. Kovacic, I think, is going to be rested anyway. He won't play. I don't think Jorginho will play. We've got no Kante. Zakaria has to play. I think it's as simple as that. There's nothing riding on this game. It would be a perfect opportunity to see what he can do. Is that something you'd be pushing for?
I'd be pushing for it, but again, he made it very clear in his preference. He's not just going to give out first team appearances for nothing.
No.
So I would expect to see him at some point tomorrow. Whether he starts is another question.
I think he should start. There's no reason why he shouldn't be. What have you made of the whole situation? Because I think it's really weird.
Mate, it is weird. It is very weird, but it was kind of similar. I know we saw more of Saul, but it did take a while for Saul to get his first appearance for Chelsea. I think
it didn't take this long, though.
No, I think we actually saw him first when he came on or started the League Cup game.
We started a game against Villa in the league and got subbed at half. He got subbed at half time in his first two.
Oh yeah, he was tossed.
Because he was shit. Yeah. I mean, Potter again, as you said, mate, is saying he's been really good, trained well, supported his teammates. He's disappointed not to play like everybody is. He's in the frame, in the squad available. We will wait and see. I mean, he's not really given much away there at all. But yeah, I don't know. I think Zakaria has to play and in this system as well. I think we have to stick him in.
Yeah.
I'd go with Zakaria there. Now, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the next ones. For me, I think Chukwuemeka has to start. Though there is a slight doubt because he did individual training today. I'm not sure if that was discussed in a press conference or not, but he wasn't ruled out or anything. But what my two here, and I'll get your thoughts on it. I'm going to absolutely butcher this spelling.
To be fair,
that might be right.
We'll check it later.
We'll check it later. I would be going with
Gallagher was one of mine.
Yeah, I'd go Chukwuemeka and Gallagher. I've been really impressed with Chukwuemeka. Potter's given him some minutes from the bench, and he's looked impressive. I thought he looked really promising when he came on against Brentford. We saw him get a small cameo against Wolves. I think he looks a promising player. I think this is a perfect game to give him Champions League experience and some sort of a big bulk of first team minutes in one game. Like, if you're not going to start him in this game, this is more ideal than chucking him in to start against City in the cup, in my opinion. So I would definitely be going Chukwuemeka and then Conor Gallagher. I know Gallagher started at the weekend, but so did Loftus-Cheek, and I think Gallagher's got a bit more about him in terms of kind of fitness levels and stuff. And maybe pre-arranged beforehand that Gallagher does one half, Loftus-Cheek does another half. It just depends. But I'd be going with Chukwuemeka and Gallagher. What are your thoughts on Chukwuemeka?
Well, I actually think that this is a good opportunity for him, and I just by listening to you, I've changed my opinion on I would have had Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek, but I now understand that it's probably more sensible to have Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek as your most experienced players in that three, to split a half each to guide the other two, and also it's one position in the team that we really cannot risk another injury.
Yeah.
So we can't. Yeah, you could say, "Oh, let's play Jorginho or Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek," but if one gets injured, we really are in serious trouble, and we don't need to in this game. It's a risk-free game. So, as weird as that looks on paper, in terms of going against what Potter's saying in the press conference about not just giving them for giving them sake, I think it's an area that we can't risk, and actually that works quite well with a balance of just experienced player on for one half and then substitute. And I think he's been quite impressive when he's come on. He's been quite impactful when he's come on and made it. So yeah, I'd like to see that. I would like to see.
Mate, what have you made of Conor Gallagher recently? Because I know you've.
I'm not a fan, mate. Sorry.
Mate. I don't understand why you're not a fan. I think he brings a lot to the table. I really like him. I think he's good on the ball. He brings a lot, high energy. He brings high press. You know, I really like him. I think he's got a lot to offer. I'm not saying he's the finished article by any means. He's not, but I think he's got something to offer to this team. A great assist at the weekend for Havertz. I thought he was one of our better players on Saturday. Someone that could probably have come away with his head held high. Why don't you like him?
There was a good debate on the drive home from TalkSport, and they were getting people to ring up about players that fans shout about and rave about that you don't rate personally. Ring up if and bring an example. And I was so tempted with this one. I just don't get the hype with him. All right, he did all right at Palace. I want him to do well. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not going to turn up to Stamford Bridge and like batter his name. I want him to do well, and I want to be proven wrong. Maybe my bar's too high because we've been blessed with so many good midfielders that you'd expect more. But I don't know. For me, I think he's just got a lot to learn, and if Chelsea want to bridge the gap, I think we need better players around him to make it better. Maybe he's struggling because our midfield is quite weak at the moment, and he's maybe being asked to do too much. We rely so heavily on like a Kovacic, for example, to do everything else. I don't know. He's like my thought again. Jack Grealish. I think he's the most overhyped footballer in the league. Just I don't get the hype at all. I just think he's bang average.
I think he's a very good squad option though, Gallagher. Even if he's not going to play
he's a
every
good squad
week.
Option.
Yeah,
but I could name maybe 10 central midfielder players that are better than Gallagher. So is he that good? Like I think James Ward-Prowse is better than Gallagher.
Oh no, rubbish!
I do,
mate. That is utter nonsense, mate. That is utter shit from you.
It's not at all.
Mate, that is mate. Ward-Prowse has been dog shit this season. Mate,
who's the one at Palace? Elise, is it Elise?
Yeah, but Elise. Yeah, but he's not a midfield player.
Midfield plays wing.
That's not midfield though, is it?
Well,
but I like Gallagher, and I think he's got a lot to offer. So I'll definitely play him in this game tomorrow as well.
Okay, I'll play him in this game, and prove. I want him to prove me wrong, and there's
let's move into the front three. I wanted to quickly touch on someone that I don't think is going to play, and is someone that's coming for big money in the summer. Did pretty well under Tuchel, but since Potter's come in, apart from scoring in his first game, hasn't scored since and hasn't really impressed at all since. Someone you're a big fan of, Sterling. What do you make of Sterling at the moment? He's been really struggling.
Yeah, to be fair, I can't really hide away from the criticism. He has been poor. Not just average, he's been poor. I think he had a good start. Yeah. He actually had an all right start under.
Yeah, he did have a good start.
But again, you kind of get that same with the managers. You get like an initial bounce, and the hunger's there and the desire to prove people and get off the mark early. But then it's kind of fizzled away. And I think for a lot of these players, it hasn't helped that they've been bought into coming to the club because someone's sold them the dream, and then all of a sudden you've got a new manager in. Who you then start to question, well, does he want me? He wants me to play. Sterling must be pissed that, he's now being asked to play fullback sometimes. Because he's not a fullback. I mean, and I'm not going to question Potter's tactics because he obviously knows way more about football than I do, but maybe that would work out to be an absolute dream, but I can't see it personally. But the whole Chelsea attack's just been dry for goals for years. I mean, it's not necessarily his fault, but I do expect more from him to be more creative.
Playing at wing back definitely hasn't helped him. But in terms of the reasons he left City, he wanted to be the main man. If you want to be the main man at Chelsea, you cannot be putting in performances like you've been doing for the last month or so. You can't. And yeah, it'll take time, and I think he could. I think he will still be very good for Chelsea. But I do also feel that perhaps with in the City machine, I think because he was playing with such high quality around him, his deficiencies weren't really that exposed. Now at Chelsea, where you're getting less chances per game and you're not surrounded with the same quality of player, your deficiencies are a lot more exposed and they're a lot easier to see. And the fact is, Sterling's not a good finisher, never has been. But at City, when you win 3-4-0 every week, and you score a couple of goals, but you miss 3 chances, or you miss 3 chances in a game, but your team's won 4-0, no one speaks about that. But at Chelsea, where goals aren't scored that regularly, you miss a couple of chances, and that's really highlighted. And I think that's the problem that Sterling's got at the moment, is that Chelsea aren't as good as City. We don't create we haven't got the same quality that City have got. And his flaws, which are his finishing's not good. Let's be perfect. I know he's scored a lot of goals, but his finishing's not great. And in this side, that's kind of being exposed.
Yeah, mate, I can't really add to that. I think that's perfectly summed up. I think, playing for a team like that, just you're going to get more chances. It's overlooked what he's missed, because that team just dominates, at least 80% possession every game, creates multiple, if not double digits of chances, even if they're not on target. And Chelsea, far few in between. We very rarely we get a lot of chances. If we do, they're half chances. We don't shoot outside the box. We don't necessarily get players to the bar line. It's all very much in front of the back four, trying to pass our way through, and it's a lot slower. Just, and that's not going to help his game. So he's going to have to find a different way to play. But if you're a good player or a great player, you should be able to adapt and find a way. And it's going to take time with that whole front line. I think Potter, it's obvious that he doesn't want Aubameyang. Aubameyang's just not a Potter player, but he's got him.
No.
It's obvious that maybe Havertz is perhaps not what he's bigged up to be. It's obvious Pulisic, perhaps, whilst shows signs of brilliance, is not consistent enough. So there are lots. I think there's going to be lots of changes in that front line to come if Potter remains in charge.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think Sterling, with better players around him, will probably look better himself as well. So we can add more quality around him. Then who knows? But it's definitely not the end. It's definitely not like it's not like Sterling's not going to deliver for Chelsea. It's just he's in a bad run of form, and it's a bit concerning. But he's got the quality to pull himself out of it and still be an important player for Chelsea. But yeah, he's got to find some sort of form, and quick. Mate, I on this right-hand side, it's a shame that Amari Hutchinson, the really promising guy from that we signed from Arsenal, who's been doing really well in the 21s PL2 or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
he's unfortunately not eligible to play in this. Would you? I've put Hakim Ziyech in here. He came on at the weekend. I know doesn't really want to be here, but I mean, this is the sort of game you'd stick him in, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't want to see him play for Chelsea again personally. I think he's not.
Well, I mean, yeah, but in terms of rotation for this game,
you're
not going to start Mason Mount in this game.
No.
And you're not going to play. I would be surprised if you played Raheem Sterling in this game as well. Yeah. So I probably would play Ziyech, but yeah, it's a shame for Ziyech because he was so good at Ajax that it just hasn't really happened at Chelsea. He's got such good technical ability. He's got a great delivery. He's probably the most technically gifted, probably could be our most technically gifted forward player. The guy's got such good delivery, but we just don't really see it on a consistent enough basis. And he almost looks like he can't be asked. And I'm not saying that that's the case or anything, but it just seems that, I don't know, it looks like he's not bothered. Now, I don't know. His Chelsea career is done. He wanted to leave in the summer. It didn't happen. Maybe he could leave in January potentially. But yeah, I mean, would you like? I think just because of the fact we want to rest players and we haven't really got anyone else, then I would stick him in, but I don't expect him to play because of those. I think again, Potter has to be careful about, like you said, if there's a player that clearly doesn't want to be at Chelsea. Again, do you even play a player who, is not going to necessarily give it 110%? It's just going to go through the motions in a game that, it's a dead rubber, but it's a professional game of football. What message does that send to players who are desperate to get minutes, or just those regulars who love to play for Chelsea and want to play? So I think he still does have to get the balance. I don't know who we go with, but I'd probably go with Ziyech. I mean, he could play Havertz again. I really don't know. But I'd be going Ziyech here, and then I would be playing Christian Pulisic on this side. I think he just deserves just to have a run of games in the side to just kind of show what we can do. The stints at wing-back aren't helping him at all. He was awful, like Sterling was on Saturday. He was okay. He was better against Salzburg. I think he deserves a chance to actually play in his preferred position on the left-hand side. I think this could be a real big confidence-boosting game for him. George, centre forward. It's not going to be Aubameyang. This has to be Broja for me. It just has to be. You know, I felt he should have started against Salzburg. He didn't. And Broja did do the press conference, and that usually means you start. Although Loftus-Cheek did the presser last time, and he didn't start. But this has to be Broja, and he deserves an opportunity. Yes, he started against Brentford, but he's only started one game for Chelsea, I think, and this is a perfect opportunity for him to get the first goals of his career in a Champions League and just give himself a bit of a confidence boost as well. I mean, what have you, briefly before we round out, what have you made of Broja? Do you like what you see? He's rapid.
I do, yeah.
I think he's very raw though.
Very, very like Costa-like, which I like. Costa, but with pace, which I really like. I think he hasn't put a foot wrong. I think he's done really well when he's come into the fold and offers energy. I think he's been waiting for his opportunity. Again, I don't think he starts tomorrow. I think Havertz starts again because I think if there's one player that Potter's been very consistent on, it's probably Havertz, and he scored at the weekend. Okay, albeit in a defeat.
He's got 2 in 2 now.
2 in 2, and again, you did make a comment at the weekend about this is an opportunity to also try and bash 5 or 6, give those players who've been desperate for goals confidence.
Yeah.
And again, it's a careful one to tread because do you take out a player who is scoring goals despite we're not playing well as a team out of the team when he could bash 4 or 5 and give himself a bit of a boost? Again, it doesn't mean anything if Havertz scores a hat-trick against Zagreb. It doesn't prove anything, but what it does is it keeps that momentum going. But again, maybe for a different option, like we said, if Broja can net a couple, then that gives us another dynamic when it comes to the bigger games of, yes, we can make a change and Broja can be up to the mark. So I don't know. I think he goes Havertz, but I'd like to see Broja. So it's our team.
I would agree. Let's go with this. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how many of these we actually get right to see compared to what Potter does. I'll be keeping tabs on that. Mate, only one thing left to do. Score prediction tomorrow night. We want to finish the group stage with a win. I mean, this could be it could be a low scoring game, or it could be we could absolutely smash them. I'm gonna go. I think this is a game where we need to be getting a few goals. I'm not disrespecting the opposition because they did beat us that last time out. But I think we could win 4-1 tomorrow night. I'm just gonna go bold. I'm gonna go 4-1.
I don't think it's going to be that high scoring. I really don't, just because Chelsea aren't typically high scoring. I can't remember the last time we bashed quite a few in. We had 3-0 against Milan, didn't we?
And we had 3-0 against Wolves as well.
I'm gonna go 2-1.
2-1. Okay.
Yeah,
wins a win at the end of the day.
Wins a win. We will win. We will win the game.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for all your comments in the chat. I appreciate it as always. On your way out, please do smash the likes. Let's get those likes up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It doesn't cost you any money. It takes seconds of your time. So please do hit that subscribe button. I will be at Stamford Bridge tomorrow night, so there won't be a match reaction after the game, but there will be a match day vlog, and I might do a match reaction depending on how the game goes on Thursday. But yeah, make sure you stay tuned for the match day vlog, which will be dropping after the game tomorrow. But yeah, guys, as I said, smash the likes on your way out, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the game tomorrow night. And we'll catch you again in the next couple of days. Up the Chelsea.